Hi, I'm Doug Ray, president and founder of the Wealth Guardians and the Ray Financial Group.
And I'm Garrett Ray, and you've entered The Vault, the Wealth Guardians video series on all things pertaining to retirement planning. In this episode, we're going to talk about succession planning and should you involve your children. We're going to talk about the cases for involving your children, some considerations and challenges you may run into, how do you prepare for a smooth transition, and lastly, what if you determine that, succession planning within the family just isn't a possibility? What are some of your other options? All right, Doug, well, let's jump into it. What are some of the big cases for involving children or family members in succession planning?
Yeah, and I thought this topic was perfect because you are going to be the succession plan here. The case for having children involved in the business succession plan is, number one, it obviously ensures that the business remains in the family.
Right.
It also maintains that family legacy.
Right.
And, of course, it will preserve wealth across generations.
Mm-hmm.
Like you, children who grow up in the business or around the business, you have a deep understanding of the operations, the culture, and the values. You got very interested in investing in financial planning at an early age.
Yeah, I can remember being, 7, 8 years old, on some of those more legacy computers, watching you kind of look over different trades and how the market moved and everything. And, just absorbing like a little sponge, even at that age, you start to gain slowly but surely skills that can translate once you have a better understanding as an adult is how that can relate to a family business, particularly in what we do here in finance. That being said, when you are considering children or family members for part of your succession plan for your business, what are some of those considerations that you need to be thinking about? What are some challenges that you may run into?
Yeah, there are. I mean, because not all children could be interested in that business. They grew up around it and they just took a complete disinterest in it.
Yeah.
And they may not even be capable of taking over that business. And if you try to force that issue on them, that could lead to resentment, stress, and ultimately a leadership position that they're really not committed to or prepared to handle.
Yeah, I think that's a key point, Doug. I mean, you need to make sure that your child or your family member has a deep interest in the core of the business, and in many cases is willing to get, additional education or build upon additional skills that may be required for that core business.
Yeah. And the other thing that, Garrett, you got to consider is if there's multiple children, then, how do you fairly go about transitioning one child into a leadership role and the other? You got to be fair. You got to be open and transparent about the whole thing, because that could lead to disappointment and a family squabble, if you will.
Sure. So I think you hit on it. Those are definitely some things that we need to be thinking about to prepare for a smooth transition. Is there anything else that we need to think of as we're preparing for that smooth transition when the old business owner is kind of willing to either step back or maybe completely step away and that next generation is coming up?
Sure, you might need for that child to have some formal training in, for example, maybe accounting or marketing or something like that, and even handling the books and that kind of thing.
Okay.
But, you've got to have clear, concise criteria for the involvement and the progression of that child within the business.
Yeah, you got to give them goals along the way so that the business owner who's either stepping back or stepping away completely has confidence that they're ready to take over and kind of step into that leadership role. Doug, let's kind of go through the thought process of, let's say that business owner has kind of surveyed the land, taken a look at his family, and realized, it's just not a possibility to keep the business sustained within the family, whether it's my direct children or perhaps, nieces, nephews, that sort of thing. What are some alternatives that business owners can consider as, successioning their business successfully, but away from the family?
Yeah, sure. For example, you might have a key employee that's been around a long time and knows the business inside and out and has a real interest in the business.
Kind of like your right-hand lieutenant.
Absolutely. And so you would obviously look to transition that person into the ownership role of the business in some kind of a buyout situation. And if you don't have that, then you could just outright sell it. There's a lot of M&A activity out there, and we certainly have access to an M&A firm that just really focuses on small business owners, not huge Wall Street type, but small business owners. And then, of course, if that doesn't work, maybe you could just merge into another company.
Yeah, sure. If you have like a business partner that you respect and say, hey, maybe we join forces here, and that might be a way for a business owner to kind of step back or retire in that sort of fashion. Well, Doug, I think you hit some really key concepts on what a business owner needs to consider if they're thinking about successioning their business to family members, and even some things that, if they just realize that's not a possibility. Is there anything else you'd like to add here?
I think we got it summed up pretty good.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it for this episode of The Vault. Again, please feel free to hit those like and subscribe buttons you see down below to catch all future episodes. And remember, sound financial plans do not create themselves.